my story. When I was 11, I found myself in the hospital, looking down on my arms with two IVs, giving me fluids with antibiotics, and I was getting nebulizer treatments as well to help me breathe, which is a mist with what looks like a peace pipe and making me smoke this every hour just so I can keep my lungs expanded because I was coughing like crazy, couldn't really catch a breath, and my fevers were spiking. So I wound up in the hospital because of this pneumonia. I didn't have a roommate because I was a child in an adult ward and they didn't want to have another person next to me. And I was also infectious and they weren't sure what kind of pneumonia I had. So I was getting round the clock antibiotics. And after spending a week there, began to despair and was worried that I wasn't getting any better. And my doctors were confirming that, yes, you're not getting any worse, but you're not getting any better. And we're not sure exactly what type of pneumonia you have, but we're going to keep doing this treatment. So I was getting concerned that I wasn't going to get out of here anytime soon or when. And I didn't even know what I had. I had people come visit me, my pastor, friends, and they were able to pray for me. And I had to pray for myself, asking, why am I here? Why am I suffering like this? And what way am I going to get out of here and when? And it wasn't a matter of looking forward to days or weeks. I was struggling for hours and into the next day. And my doctors would round every day. They would be coming, and that's the only people that I'd be looking forward to seeing every day. And then finally, I had a compassionate family friend who was a doctor in training, and he thought outside the box and said, well, maybe you're not responsive to this penicillin. There might be something else that you need to change and maybe change antibiotics. So we tried to change the antibiotics, and in 2 days, I felt much better. I was able to breathe, the fever went down, and then within a week, I was able to leave the hospital. But through all that suffering and struggle and bargaining pretty much with God, I began to realize that I don't want anybody else to suffer like I do. If I get out of here, I'm going to go to medical school. That's when I dedicated myself to being a doctor so that people wouldn't have to suffer as I did, or at least I could prevent things from people. And I'd like to think outside the box as well and give them solutions to their medical problems. So I went on to go through high school. It did very well, and then went to college, and then went to medical school, and then went to internal medicine residency, and then into gastroenterology for fellowship. Got all board certifications and had a great career in California, now practicing over 30 years, and was really helpful. I was really happy to help so many people and their suffering, people that would come to the emergency room with problems of stomach pain, bleeding, gallbladder problems, and be able to help solve their problems and also be preventative in terms of preventing cancer in the colon and the esophagus. So all this 30 plus years of experience really helped me develop different ways of helping people outside the box. And I continue to do that to this day. But after practicing for 20 years in California, I was successful helping people with emergencies, bleeding, preventing cancers, and I was doing wonderful. But then one night I had my own medical problems to deal with. So I was very tired, fatigued, and wasn't sure why I wasn't recovering. And didn't think too much of it because I figured the next day or two I'd be fine. But then that week I also had an insurance physical and found that my blood pressure was really high. And they did other labs and found the cholesterol was high, blood sugar was high, and all these things. I was shocked because I had always been the peak of health. And I had always been exercising, and this was a total surprise for me. I did additional labs as well and found that I had lower testosterone and that I also had high mercury levels. So I was basically a mess. And I just said, I have to do something, right? mask the symptoms. I could try to get things going, but I still wanted to treat myself to restore my health. And so what I did was I tried everything that I knew. I had bloating as well, and I had a little bit of brain fog, and my bowels weren't working very well as well in terms of constipation. And of course, I could take things to help these, but what I tried to do was I just treated myself conventionally because I had helped thousands and thousands of people do really well with all the approaches that I knew. But I was a little bit embarrassed, quite a bit embarrassed, that I myself couldn't get relief from the methods and techniques that I'd been teaching and helping other people with. So there came a point where I just had to find another solution. And that's when I went to functional medicine, which is root cause medicine. And that I could try to look at the root causes to what brought me to this condition. So when I looked at this area, spent lots of time, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then looked into these areas. And this is what I want to tell you about this process that you can experience for yourself. And then looked into these areas and I found 3 things that I could do. And I did address those 3 root cause conditions, and I got much better. So my blood pressure was normalized back to when I was in college. Cholesterol went down, testosterone went up, blood sugars went down, and mercury levels started to come down too. So this 3-step process is why I'm here and why you're here. And this is what I want to tell you about this process that you can experience for yourself. Welcome to the Gut Reset Masterclass, the science-backed 3-step process to end digestive suffering. This masterclass is for you if you have bloating, brain fog, fatigue, anxiety, reflux, constipation, and depression, and want to fix the root cause permanently and not looking for a temporary relief with just a Band-Aid fix. So if you have these symptoms and you want a permanent solution and not a temporary fix, then you're in the right place. Before we go into the 3-step solution, I want to address 3 myths. Myth number 1, that digestive suffering cannot be cured. This is what Nancy absolutely believed, that was not possible, that you couldn't be cured from what she had. She had this lump in the throat. She had issues with fatigue, heartburn, and tried different methods to help herself with the laxatives and other types of medications. But when she came to us, we applied the 3-step process, the first of which is to remove toxins and foods that she was sensitive to and bacteria that had overgrown. So we did this for her, and she found that, yes, indeed, she could be cured of her symptoms and condition. Myth number 2, we have to live with digestive suffering. This is what Adam believed in. He had this unexplained problem of having this fatigue, brain fog, bloating, and he couldn't solve it for himself. He thought, I'm just going to have to suffer and deal with it, until he met with us and we applied the second process in the 3-step process, which is the repair. And he had problems with leaky gut and with yeast, and we basically applied this principle for him, and he was able to end his suffering. Myth number 3 is that curing digestive suffering is hard, and this is what Wendy believed in with all her heart. She thought, I'm not going to be able to do this. So she came to us with their bloating and pain and constipation, which she had tried to fix herself and was not successful, and thought this was hard. I can't really figure this out. So we showed her the 3rd step in restoring her motility, and we were able to get her back on track, and she was able to have regular bowel movements and to be able to not have the bloating. So she found that the steps, that you just had to take these 3 steps. After treating Nancy, Adam, Wendy, and thousands of others, I found this 3-step process that worked for them. And let me introduce myself again. I'm Dr. Jeffrey Mark. At age 11, I decided to dedicate myself to medicine, to help people, to be a doctor. I had my microbiome wiped out after having a pneumonia and being pumped full of antibiotics, and had a very scary experience in the hospital. And that really was a life-changing event for me. I'd gone through medical school and then went on to residency training and fellowship training in gastroenterology. Very successful 30 years in practice in California, helping people with all kinds of emergencies and also preventing all kinds of illnesses. And in the past 10 years, I've discovered functional medicine. And that's because I had found out that I had developed bloating and was suffering with digestive symptoms myself 10 years ago. And I couldn't find out or find the fix for me. And this was a little bit embarrassing. And what I had to do was really do a deep dive into root cause medicine. So I spent thousands of dollars, thousands of hundreds of hours, and went into looking into functional medicine or root cause medicine. And that's where I found my solution and the solution that I've been able to help others with since then. So I was successful teaching other doctors in terms of conventional medicine using medications, but now I work with people with functional medicine in addition to my training in conventional medicine to get better lasting results. So now I want to go ahead and expand what I've learned to help more people. And this route has led me to telemedicine and reaching out with the media that we have now available so I can reach out to more people and help more people end digestive suffering. So, again, my friends, if you can imagine that your suffering can be cured, that you don't have to worry about bloating again, urgency, gas, that this is a thing of the past and that your future is back to normal. And number two, that you can live again and be active with your friends and family, that you don't have to avoid family functions, that you don't have to worry about going to the restroom, releasing gas, and able to fully participate with your family again. And then myth number three, if you can find a step-by-step process so that the ending of the digestive suffering is not difficult, that no more trial and error, that you can have a step-by-step process that you can step one, step two, and without having to worry and look up things yourself and try wondering if this will work or not. If you want that freedom, again, we can do this three-step process with you. Okay, so let's get started looking at the solutions. As you remember, myth number one was digestive suffering cannot be cured. And one of the secrets that we found is that you can have an inflamed gut. And one of the things that is a problem is that you can have toxins and other things that need to be removed. For instance, we have Don, who was eating a lot of sashimi and didn't know that this was a problem for him in terms of tuna and mercury. So he had a lot of high mercury levels, and this was causing him to have lots of digestive distress and suffering. And then we had Tim, who actually had been exposed to mold toxins, and we had to find out through testing to see why his gut issues were coming and not getting resolved. So we had to work with him on removing this area. And then we had another, Sarah, who had problems with taking in a lot of additives and foods, such as she would eat a lot of sugar substitutes, kind of or diet sodas and other things. And these diet related drinks actually harmed her bacteria, her good bacteria. And we had to remove her from taking a lot of these additives and sugar additives as well. So that all these things were necessary to get this inflamed gut under control. Also, of course, we took proactive approaches by giving them nutrients. And the nutrients in the small bowel, we would give them L-glutamine. And for the colon, the preferred fuel is butyrate or short-chain fatty acids. So we were able to restore and repair the intestines in this fashion and reduce the inflammation. The other sources of inflammation that some people don't think about is stress is a toxin because you could be stressed by people around you, your work situations, and the stress raises the cortisol, and that diverts blood flow away from the GI tract, the intestines, and it causes a stressor on the lining of the intestines because they're not being fed by nutrients, and it gets weaker and thinner, and that could be a cause of inflammation as well. So all these need to be addressed in several different people. This is part of our protocol, is to remove first things that could be problematic. Other things that we've had someone that was sensitive to foods, and when they would eat the food, it would take some time, maybe up to 3 days, for them to get a reaction. They would get a headache or they would feel tired more, and they also would get bloated as well. And that is another cause of problems that we needed to address as well, which is food sensitivities. And you could test for that. All these things you have to test for, but you can also take a look at the diet. And we were able to work with each and every one of these people, looking at their diet plans and removing a problem for them. So many times people don't realize that in order to end digestive suffering, it's not adding things necessarily, but you have to remove things first so you can get the repair process going. Okay, so let's address myth number 2, which is you don't have to live with digestive suffering if you can do a repair and rebalance your gut microbiome. And this is a concept that people don't realize, that the bacteria is in balance. It's an ecosystem. So it's much like the environment that you have. You have birds, trees, you have wolves, deer. So everything is in balance, right? But there could be an imbalance that occurs, and most of the bacteria is in the colon, that we can have bad bacteria. And you can also have bacteria in the wrong places, such as in the small bowel. And this causes a lot of damage and overgrowth. And these bacteria can capture a lot of the nutrients, and you don't get the nutrients, right? They also can make it more efficient for you to extract calories so that people can actually gain weight and have other problems with this issue. So, for instance, people that have had antibiotics before wipe out the good and the bad bacteria. Then often what comes back after the recovery process is sometimes you can get the bad bacteria coming back, and you need to rebalance this because these bad bacteria are more aggressive. They can cause damage in the lining of the intestines. They could, in certain cases, migrate back up into the small intestine because you may have had some damage from an initial infection as well, or there could be some other issues going on. So you want to repair this process and rebalance the bacteria. You could do this with nutraceuticals, which is basically supplements that can rebalance the bacteria. And let me tell you some stories of people that have had problems with this. For instance, we had Sam, who came in and had problems with bloating and discomfort and was suffering. And he had recently traveled and had gone to Mexico, but this was years ago. And then he would come back, and then ever since then, his bowels were off, right? So we found out that it was basically an imbalance, this infection that he had while he was in Mexico, that probably had some injury, possibly to the nerve and the gut-brain connection, and also with this imbalance of the bacteria that occurred. And we had to address that issue. We first do a repair of the lining of the intestines. And then after that, we had to give some nutrients and nutraceuticals to remove some of the bad bacteria there so you can get some rebalancing. And then afterwards, we had to work on getting his bowel motility back, which we'll tell you about in the next secret. But this repair work was necessary, and because otherwise he wouldn't have gotten back this right balance that was occurring. Other things that are very important about this repair process is that we've had people also take additional types of antibiotics to remove bacteria. For instance, Paul, he was treated with antibiotics for a bacterial overgrowth, but this didn't seem to work. And part of that was because he needed some repair as well. So he needed some nutrients, some glutamine for the small bowel, and also some short chain fatty acids for the colon itself to allow it to have healing and to have that lining repaired so that there wouldn't be this leakiness that was occurring. So we had to give him some nutraceuticals, and then we also later introduced specific types of bacteria, spore-based bacteria that can't grow in the small intestine, that live and grow in the large intestine. And those bacteria are actually able to outcompete bacteria, most of the other bacteria. So they do like a terraforming. They make the environment ideal for themselves, but because the pH is not right in the small intestine, they can't grow there. So this is very useful as well, using specific bacteria to help rebalance and do the repair work, which in this case was very helpful for Paul. The other thing to consider is reinstituting good bacteria, and that is dependent on timing. For instance, we've had Randy come in, and he thought that he needed probiotics. That was the answer, right? So he took a lot of probiotics, but wasn't getting any better. And that's because he did have this imbalance and he was trying to fix it himself, but it's a matter of timing. We first had to remove and repair, removing the bad bacteria, repairing the lining, and then as a third step, then giving the proper probiotics, which is a spore-based probiotic, and that helps rebalance and rebuild and remove the bad bacteria as well. So it's a matter of timing in terms of probiotics, the right probiotics, and necessary repair process that needs to happen. So for him, once we got that order corrected, he did very well. When he just thought that he was just needed probiotics and that was just feeding into this overgrowth pattern. So let's address the third myth, which is curing digestive suffering is hard. It is hard if you don't have a step-by-step process and that you don't restore the gut-brain connection, which is motility, which I'm going to talk to you about. Stories of people that we've helped that have had problems with the motility. So, for example, Betty came in and she had gotten antibiotics. She was treated elsewhere for bacterial overgrowth, and then she went on diets. And what happened was 6 months after she was treated, she again had problems with bloating again. So she said, oh, this feels exactly like what I had before. Went back to that doctor. I had a second set of antibiotics. And then 6 months later, again had problems. And she was wondering if there was some resistance, some problem with the treatment plan. She came to us. We told her that it's not necessarily that the antibiotics didn't work or the original regimen didn't help or that she's had to stay on a particular diet, but it was because her gut-brain connection and motility was never restored. So if you don't have the motility, you can probably have problems recurring again. So we explained to her that movement is very important, right? Anytime you have things that stay still in the body, there's risk for infection or other types of things going wrong. So the cleanest water is like from the mountaintop flowing to the ocean. The whitewater rafts are very clean, fast moving. The dirtiest water is water that's from streams that are trickling down, moving slowly. Algae and other bacteria can grow, and you definitely want to drink from that kind of water. The reason why most people don't have problems like with urinary tract infections, right? Because we urinate 3 or 4 times a day. So we're drinking enough water, we urinate. There's bacteria there, but they get flushed out. So similar situation in the bowels that, well, they might have cleared things up for you, but then you're still having this persistent problem because you haven't reactivated this gut-brain connection. So we helped her address issues. She had issues of some stress. She had some other areas where she had a tooth infection that we were able to clear up for her as well. And then we helped her with some meditation and some vagal nerve exercises. And that really helped getting her motility back. And that was key to having this resolve her problems because now the flow was back. So we need to restore this process because otherwise, if you don't do that, at risk for recurrence that Betty had. Several other people have experienced this as well. So Edward also was had chronic stress as well on top. And as I told you before, with the stress, there's high cortisol, causes a diversion of blood flow from the gut. And that's because you're in a fight or flight response, right? Because of that, he wasn't getting added nutrients or nourishing his gut, and that was causing inflammation. The inflammation was causing more anxiety because signals are from the gut to the brain, not just from the brain to the gut. In fact, there's more signals going from the gut to the brain. So he was getting more anxious. This was a feedback problem for him. He would try to work with the removal process and the repair process, but really wasn't getting fully well until we met him and told him that, okay, there's this gut brain connection that you have to work on. So we made some lifestyle changes for him, got him to, again, do some vagal nerve exercises and had him do activities, exercise, to have grounding in terms of taking walks, which were very good for him, making sure that he got early morning sunlight. The blue light from that was very helpful to stimulate his brain so that he could have normal higher levels of cortisol in the morning and then lower levels at night and higher melatonin so he could get rest as well. So all this helped work together to restore his gut-brain connection and restore his gut function. And his symptoms of bloating and other types of issues that he was having in terms of digestive distress went away, and he had more peace of mind and was able to have much better quality of life that he had before. So that's very important to restore this gut-brain connection. The other things are that we had another person, Sarah, and she had issues with what we call a geographic tongue, which is like inflammation where the tongue has some certain patterns. And then she also had a lot of stress. She had bloating, and she had a lot of other problems maintaining her health. And it was found that she also had an infection that was not known. It was actually in her tooth as well. So she needed tooth extraction because she was having abscess there. And once that was taken care of, this inflammation, we were able to help her restore her gut-brain connection as well. So there's a lot of tie-in with different parts of the body, not just the gut, but it is important that you recognize and look for problems that could lead to this gut-brain connection having a problem. So let's summarize. Myth number 1, we talked about digestive suffering cannot be cured. Myth number 2, we talked about that you have to live with digestive suffering. And myth number 3 is that curing digestive suffering is hard. So we demonstrated that these 3 are not true. But let me tell you about Jacqueline's story and how these 3 beliefs that she had turned out that, were not true, right? Obviously. So Jacqueline is 32 years old. She's mother, young two-year-old kids, twins, and she was having problems with reflux. She had problems with upper stomach pains as well, and she had a lot of burping and was bloated. So she thought, okay, these are things that I could probably deal with, and she did deal with them for a certain period of time, but then had problems where this was just becoming unbearable. So she sought help, and she got treated conventionally for a bacterial infection called Helicobacter pylori. They tested her for this, thinking that, okay, she has symptoms that may be similar to these things. So she received antibiotics, and for a while, she thought this was the answer. She did better. But then things came back, and she just was back to where she had started again. So she's suffering again, and she's thinking, okay, I thought this could be cured, but that wasn't the solution. So then she went ahead and was told you have reflux. So she went ahead, medications for reflux. And again, for a short period of time, she did better. But then again, went back to having problems with this upper stomach pain and discomfort. And then finally, she said, okay, been treated for an infection. I've been treated for reflux. Why am I still suffering? So conventionally, they looked at her. They found her gallbladder was partially not functioning very well. and she went ahead. The surgeon convinced her to have her gallbladder removed. So she had her gallbladder removed. And again, after the surgery, or 2 months after the surgery, she again had symptoms. So now she was suffering again, and she was more firmly in her mind, digestive suffering can't be cured, because I tried 3 different things, even surgery, and it didn't work. So now I have to live with the digestive suffering, right? That's what she's thinking. And that it's too hard to continue to figure out what's going on. So then she met with us and tried this 3-step process for her. We took a look at her situation, and she had excessive amounts of stress, and she also had dietary problems. She had food sensitivities. She was sensitive to many types of things such as corn and soy, and so we and some dairy. So we took those out for her. And then she also had a lot of stress, which we considered as a toxin as well. So we had her adjust her lifestyle, get some help for her twins in terms of caring, so that she wouldn't have to worry about this high cortisol level. So that was the removal process for her. And she also had bacteria that we found that was in the small bowel. So she did have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And we went ahead and treated her with nutraceuticals, with berberine, and several other natural ways of handling this, because we didn't want to give her antibiotics, which would further compromise or already damaged microbiome or ecosystem. So then we did the restore process. After we removed all these things, we restored her gut microbiome. We used the spore-based probiotics as well. We gave her L-glutamine. And then we gave her a set of prebiotics, which are basically nutrients and fibers that you can't absorb, but the bacteria can absorb. So that promotes the good bacteria for lactobacillus and bifidobacter species that we were able to give back to her. And then because of less stress, she was able to open up and be able to get more sleep. And then we were working on meditation and exercises, vagal nerve exercises, to restore the gut-brain connection, because a lot of her problems, she was having different parts that may have helped a little bit, but it was always a recurrence. And largely because of her vagus nerve not being reactivated, somewhere along the line, there might have been an infection or something that had deactivated, but had not come back even after the resolution. So she needed something to restart that and restore that gut-brain connection. So after we did all these things, her bloating resolved. She didn't have reflux anymore, because the reflux was actually likely from problems with the motility. And we were able to get off medications that she was still periodically using for acids. She ate better, and her bowels got better as well. So she was pretty happy, and now she really truly believed that she went from these 3 things, trying different trials of things that she thought that she couldn't be cured, to now realizing that I don't have to live with digestive suffering, and if I could take the steps that we taught her to do. So she thought it was hard or difficult beforehand, but when we showed her that you just have to take these small steps, the small step of removing things that were problematic for her, right? And then the next step of restoring the microbiome, the next step of repairing for the microbiome, and then the third step of restoring the gut-brain connection. Each of these areas required mini steps that we broke down for her. And she found that definitely doable and not overwhelming, which was her first impression. So just like Jacqueline and the others that we've introduced you to, we love to help you do that as well. And we can walk you through these 3 steps, and that it is possible to be cured, and that you don't have to be suffering with digestive suffering. And if you take these small steps, it's not excessively hard to do.